Falcons' new defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, had his introductory press conference today, and I had some big takeaways from it that I want to share with you guys I think could help shape what the offseason looks like for the Falcons. Now, the Saints host really quickly at Chat Sports, he is challenging Falcons Today in a bit of a like competition because he does not think Falcons Today can get 500 likes. He was talking shit in the office. So if you cannot stand a Saints fan that you work with, that's in your family, or maybe even your friend group, hit that thumbs up button down below. Now let's get into some of the takeaways I had from Jeff's press conference. Starting with this right here. Daniel Flick tweeting out, Jeff Ulbrich said the Falcons interview was thorough and professional, said they asked good questions, stressed it wasn't just two buddies chatting. This was clearly a plant. I got no doubt in my mind that Raheem Morris said, hey, before you go out there, by the way, make sure you reinforce that it was a good interview process and not that we just, shot the shit for like an hour and a half on the phone and then said, all right, you get to be the new DC in Atlanta. Yeah, I'm not surprised that he is trying to reinforce this. I'm not sure if it's necessarily true, but yeah, he's going to go out there and try and put together this image of this was not some buddy type of hire, but it was a good search process. So don't worry about everyone out there that's concerned that Raheem Morris is just hiring his friends and not necessarily the best candidate for the job. Ultimately, if Morris does not work out with the Falcons after a losing season with the talent they had on their roster, I think a legitimate downfall of his could be the staff he put together. I mean, he's been a head coach before, so I don't think this really applies to him, but it was so long ago it might apply to him. May not have been a bad idea to try and get someone with a little bit more head coach, coordinator experience on his staff. From the jump, right? Hired Zach Robinson, hired Jimmy Lake, two people he worked with in LA. Didn't really seem to go external and try and find someone that's got a lot of experience that could help a young second-time head coach. And that's where it's a little bit of gray, murky area because it feels like it's almost his first time because the stint with the Buccaneers was so long ago that I don't even know if he really remembers all the lessons he learned from that stint. But ultimately, I could see his staff and the selections he made being something that potentially takes him down if things do not improve. Moving on, another thing that Ulbrich talked about. We're going to be multiple, and we're going to do things that are 3-4-ish and 4-3-ish at times. So now we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of what his defense will look like because 2 years ago under Ryan Nielsen, it was a little bit back and forth between a 3-4 and a 4-3, but a good heavy presence of a 4-3 defense. This past year under Jimmy Lake and first year under Raheem Morris, it switched to a full 3-4 defense. And if you don't know what that means, it's 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers, which there's pros and cons to a 3-4 and a 4-3. They are used across the NFL. Usually it's just a bit of a preference for a coach if he wants to have a little bit more speed at the linebacker position versus having 4 heavy guys up front that aren't going to be great in coverage. So this is what the 3-4 looked like for the Falcons, I think, going into the offseason and the free agents they have, versus if they were to switch to a 4-3 defense. This is my best guess for everyone that's currently on the roster, what the lineup would look like. I have Ebiketie at defensive end. The guy's like 250 pounds. He's not big enough to be a defensive end. But I'm open to suggestions as who could be the defensive end on this current roster. I think the right answer is no one. Like, Rook's nearly 300 pounds. That's an interior defensive lineman. Dorless, I don't think, is ready to be a starting player, but he's probably the closest fit and mold to a defensive end in a 4-3 defense. Braylon Trice is an outside linebacker. He's not big enough, but Ebiketie's slightly larger, so that's why I went with him. Overall, I'm not very confident in the current roster makeup to run a 4-3 defense. So there are going to have to be some changes made, which can be done during the offseason to bring people in that can actually run a 4-3 defense. If we look at the upcoming draft and the edge targets, if we're talking 4-3, we're not talking Mykel Williams or Mike Green or James Pearce. We're looking more like Shemar Stewart or Nic Scourton. But if we're talking 3-4, then those outside linebackers could be a much, better fit in Atlanta's defense. Let me give you a better visualization of what I'm talking about here. This is from this past season, okay? And this is the Falcons' 3-4 3-4 defense. You've got 3 defensive linemen. You've got a nose tackle, and then 2 guys that are kind of shading in between tackle and guard, and then your 2 outside linebackers, and that presents a front 5. But they are still linebackers who have responsibilities in coverage from time to time, whereas in a 4-3 defense, those guys that are playing the 5 technique, this was from 2023, by the way, your Calais Campbells of the world, they're not dropping in coverage, right? That's not their responsibility. And then you've got 2 interior linemen, one who's not quite a nose tackle, but a 1 technique, so he's going to shade over between the center and the guard. And then your 3 technique, which is what Grady Jarrett has played for much of his career, in between the guard and the tackle. So this is hopefully a dummy version or a simplified version of what a 4-3 versus a 3-4 defense looks like. If Atlanta wants to go to a 4-3 defense, James Pearce, Mykel Williams, Mike Green, those are all guys in the 250-ish pound neighborhood. They're not going to hold up very well as a 5 technique who is standing right in front of the offensive tackle. That's Calais Campbell, who's closer to 290 pounds. And the difference is when you're 290 and you've got your hand in the grass and a 3-point stance, you're able to use your power and your strength to accomplish whatever you want to do on that pass rush snap. Whereas if you're in a 3-4 defense, your outside linebacker, he's in a 2-point stance, right? He's not putting his hand in the dirt. He's going to stand and kind of line up in an athletic position, and you lean and utilize more of his speed rather than his strength. And he needs that distance to then use that speed to his best ability, because you neutralize his speed if he lines up directly in front of the offensive tackle and he's got no room to run around him. So I hope that makes some sense if you're not a big X's and O's person of what Ulbrich is talking about when it comes to transitioning from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Ultimately, Ulbrich will also be the play caller. I should have mentioned that earlier. So just file that away if you want to complain when the season gets underway. If a call is made, it's not on Morris. It'll be on Ulbrich. But as the current roster is set up now, they're not ready for a 4-3 defense. Things can change in the offseason with acquisitions, but they would have to make some acquisitions. They'd have to make some accusations. I say accusations? Acquisitions. I'm getting all over the place. I'm getting tongue-tied here. All right, let's try and save this video here. No, it's fine. Keep it in. We're live. Fuck it. We'll do it live. So, before we get on to the rest of today's episode, the Commanders report at Chat Sports has blown past us in subscribers. Maybe because they can pronounce acquisition. No, I still can't do it right now. You see? But the more I say it, the worse it gets. Acquisitions. I can say it. I speak English. It's my first language. Anywho, help us take down the commies and subscribers. Hit that button down below if you're looking for a free Falcons YouTube channel that also helps you with learning English, evidently. For myself, mostly. Moving on. We got this tweet from Will McFadden. Ulbrich says, affecting the quarterback is my top priority. He says that you've got to affect the QB in 2 ways. Also, kudos to Will. I think that's the right usage of affect versus affect. So, well, big deal over there. Okay. Physically, he could definitely pronounce that one word I can't pronounce right now. Physically, you hit him and sack him. Affect, again, he's got the A. I always go with the E. Affect him with coverage to confuse him. Let's dissect what that means in just a moment. But first, a big shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. When you toggle this feature, it'll show you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. So if you want to go to the big game in 2 weeks from now or 13 days from now, visit Game Time. It's a great spot to save some money in the process, but take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So circling back to where we just left off, which is affecting the quarterback. That is, ready for this one? I got a hot take. Affecting the quarterback and getting a pass rusher will be the Atlanta Falcons' top priority this offseason. I said it. No shit, Sherlock. Like, of course the Falcons need to get after the quarterback and generate pressure. They were one of the worst teams in football last year at this. So yeah, big hot scalding take here. The Falcons need to target pass rushers this upcoming offseason because you look at what Ulbrich and the Jets were able to accomplish during his stint as the DC and the interim head coach, and they compare that to the Falcons. I mean, it is very far from what he's accustomed to, which is for 3 out of his 4 years there, we'll just round up and say top 10. He was tied for 11th one year, missed by a sack or two. So we'll just fit the narrative a little better and say 3 straight years of being top 10 in sacks versus 3 out of the last 4 years finishing last or second to last in sacks. So my suspicion is, while there are multiple ways to generate pressure on the quarterback, addressing the defensive line, the linebackers, just the overall front 5, front 7 will be a priority number 1 ahead of the defensive backs because the Falcons are, I wouldn't say shorthanded at secondary, but they've got a lot of free agents at the cornerback position. Mike Hughes is going to be a unrestricted free agent. D. Alford's going to be a free agent as well. So as things stand right now, only one starting corner from last year is under contract. I expect the Falcons, and you're losing Justin Simmons to free agency as well. So 2 safeties, 3 corners, 5 guys altogether, only 2 right now. A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates are under contract for this upcoming season. So you can make a fine, fair argument about they got to beef up their secondary. But based on what Ulbrich said, I'm thinking he wants to beef up the pass rush closer to the line of scrimmage first and then work his way back. He also said something that really caught my attention that might slip under the radar for some people. Pressuring the QB is a priority. The key word here is pressuring. Didn't actually spell out sacking. And this is the new trendy analytic that people are pursuing right now. And that is pressures. May not result in a sack, but if you pressure the quarterback, it could result in an incomplete pass, throwing it out of bounds, not getting to their proper read. A lot can go wrong in that situation here. So Ulbrich saying pressuring the quarterback is a priority. To me, that screams they're going to be looking at players in free agency in the draft that, sure, may not have a bunch of sacks, but they're looking for pressures. So when I look at the upcoming draft class, here are a couple of the guys that have been linked to the Falcons at 15, and you can see where they rank in pressures. Mike Green is a tough nut to crack. We did a whole video, by the way, breaking down Mike Green. I invite everyone watching right now to go watch that as well. It came out over the weekend. James Pearce, though, pound for pound and level of competition, is by far the best at generating pressures. He has not finished off as many pressures with sacks as you would like to see, but if Ulbrich's looking for guys who can generate pressures, that's the man from Knoxville, Tennessee. So I'm thinking the Falcons, they might go with a safe pick this year. It's January, got a long ways to go until round 1. But after Penix last year, maybe when they sit down in their war room, they decide maybe we don't roll the dice on a boomer bust pick like Mike Green out of Marshall, given that he played at Marshall, played the Sun Belt, the level of competition was not super high. If this blows up, everyone's going to be calling for us because we picked a kid from Marshall. Whereas if you go with James Pearce and it doesn't work out, people are always going to be upset. But I don't think they'll be as upset if you took an SEC edge rusher and he just didn't really live up to the hype and the expectations. So I'm starting to think that they may very well end up with a bit of a chalk pick in James Pearce Jr. versus Mike Green from Marshall, who led the country in sacks, finished second in tackles for loss. He had a phenomenal season, and I'm definitely not opposed to going with Green. We got a long ways to go, like I said, so I'm not making my mind up right now, but I just start to get this gut feeling after the Penix pick and the frustration that came from a lot of fans. They may want to just keep it safe, put the driver away, take out your 5-iron, and just put it right down the middle of the fairway. So before we get on out of here, a couple of other quick things I want to hit on. But first, what was the first Falcons jersey you ever got? I was doing a watch party for the main channel here at Chat Sports yesterday for Chiefs Bills, and I was listening to our Eagles host, Chase Sr., before the game started during the Eagles Commanders game, and he was talking about how he has 10 to 15 Eagles jerseys. So it kind of got me wondering, what was the first Falcons jersey you ever got? Let me know in the comment section. I also want to give a shout out to Bijan Robinson. With the Eagles going to the Soupy, that means no Saquon Barkley at the Pro Bowl, which means Bijan Robinson, one of the first alternates for the Pro Bowl, will be going to play dodgeball. I think they still do dodgeball. Is it still in Vegas? I might be more interested in the Pro Bowl than the Super Bowl this year because I don't want to see the Chiefs 3P, and I'm not like an Eagles fan by any well, like the Eagles are not an easy team to just kind of pull for. They're not lovable like the Bills, you know what I mean, where everyone can kind of rally around them. Philly is not a beloved city, especially by a lot of Braves fans, and producer Reed's from Philly, so he's not really happy with this right now. Anywho, though, Robinson, congrats to him for going to the Pro Bowl. He had a phenomenal year, 1,400 yards, 15 total touchdowns. I mean, you put together his rushing and receiving yards, and he is knocking on the door of 2,000 all-purpose yards. So kudos to Robinson. Well-earned, and I'm glad he gets the recognition that he deserves. So let's show the guys some love to wrap up the video. Type 7 in the comment section below if you are happy for the second-year man going to Vegas. Hopefully he does not have an experience like Alvin Kamara when he was in Vegas for a Pro Bowl not long ago. So with that being said, we can definitely wrap up now with this right here. Let's pick a random commenter out of the chat for just supporting you guys, or for supporting us. We want to support you, and we'll give 2 claps to whoever the wheel spin lands on. So I just picked 6 people that commented on our last video. Reed, are we ready to spin the wheel? Here we go. Who's it going to be? The winner for nothing is Jeff. I think we had a Jeff win before.
I think we had Jeff before.
It's not this Jeff, is it? I just picked 6 random people out of the chat each time.
But
if it is back-to-back Jeffs.
He's a good commenter.
Yeah, he's a great commenter. Jeff, 2 claps for you, man. 1, 2.
Thanks,
all right.
Jeff.
Thank you so much. Mr. Anglin. This has been a tough pronunciation day for me. My IQ has just plummeted. All right. I'll see you guys later.